Facebook, I'm going to try this again. We'll let those have an opportunity to come in. I am sorry. We were disconnected. And so let's give those who want to an opportunity to come in. As we're waiting for those to come in, let me remind you that on tomorrow, we will have our church business meeting, our quarterly business meeting at 7 p.m. via Zoom. By now, you should have received the piece of mail with the information regarding on how to access our Zoom meeting. Also, you should have, if you have not, please call the church office so that we may get that information to you. Also, we want to let you be aware that on tomorrow from 7:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m., we will have our food pantry. Our food pantry will be open. If you are in need or you know someone who is in need, please let them know that they can come to Faith Tabernacle tomorrow between 7:30 a.m. and 9:30 a.m. And we will have food for them. Do me a favor, share this, start a watch party, text, tweet your friends, let them know that we are back on for a second time because I was cut off on the first time. Sister Taylor, how are you doing? Thank you for watching. Sister Gwen Taylor, how are you doing as well? Let's try this one more time. As we allow those to come back in, today we want to talk about frustration or fruit. Galatians chapter 5, verses 22 through 23. It says, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such there is no law. My brothers and sisters, the truth of the matter is that I don't always show the fruits of the Spirit. There are days that are long and it seems like nothing has gone right in my life. There are days when I just lose patience, that long suffering is nowhere to be seen. And it's just difficult on some days to say that I'm exhibiting the fruit of the Spirit. Don't get me wrong. Listen, I remember learning about the fruits of the Spirit in Sunday school. I remember covering them all, but I've discovered through life's ups and downs that memorizing the fruits of the Spirit are the easy part. The more difficult part is showing them. Sometimes life's frustrations hit, and it is Paul who shows us the values we should demonstrate in our letters to the Galatians. And so the question I want to ask is, how do we trade our frustrations for the 9 fruits? And my brothers and sisters, as a Christian, we should be showing our fruits. As a Christian, God expects us to demonstrate these 9 fruits. Just as you go to the grocery store and you inspect fruit, we are, as Christians, are inspected. When you go to the grocery store, you will pick up a piece of fruit to see if it's bruised, if it's rotted, or if it's overripe, as a way of inspecting it. And all we have to do is inspect our lives to show if or not we are showing the fruits of the Spirit. Here it is. Paul grouped the fruits of the Spirit, these 9 fruits of the Spirit, into 3 triads that give a sense of order and completion. And here it is. The first group of triads is love, joy, and peace. And then he says there is patience, kindness, and goodness. Last, there is faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. My brothers and sisters, the first three fruits of the Spirit talks about the habits of the Christian mind. The second three fruits of the Spirit talks about how we are to interact socially with our neighbors and the concern we ought to have for each other. And then the last three are ways that we are to conduct ourselves as Christians. There are principles on how we are to conduct ourselves as Christians. Here it is. The first triad habits of the Christian mind is love, joy, and peace. My brothers and sisters, love is outgoing. Love is self-giving. It's a self-giving kind of action. Love isn't necessarily an emotion. I know a lot of times we try to reduce love to an emotion, but love is not an emotion. Love is action. I was taught early on that love is doing what needs to be done in a spirit of self-sacrifice, even when you don't feel like doing it and the object of your love doesn't deserve it. That's what Christ displays for us in John 3:16. John 3:16 says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son," that he gave. Love is given. You have to be careful of folk who say they love you, but all they do is take from you. Love doesn't take, but love gives. My brothers and sisters, love is the first fruit of the Spirit. But then Paul says not only is there love, but there is joy. Paul repeatedly stressed the divine origin of joy. He encouraged believers to rejoice in the Lord always. He said, "Rejoice in the Lord again. I say rejoice." Joy has nothing to, is an inward feeling and has nothing to do with your outward experience. It is totally free from what's going on the outside. That's the difference between happiness and joy. Happiness is predicated on what's happening out on the outside of you, but joy is something that you have that comes from your inward relationship with Christ. And I wish there was someone here on Facebook Live who says, "This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me, and the world can't take it away." God expects us as Christians to have joy, but not only is there love and joy, but then there is peace. Peace is the wholeness and well-being that includes both a right relationship with God and loving harmony with one's fellow person. Paul speaks both of the peace of God, the consequence of being justified with God. When you have the peace of God, you are right with God. And when you're right with God, you can have the peace of God. The peace of God, a peace that passes all understanding, that when everything is going crazy and out of control in your life, you can still have peace in the middle of the storm. You can have peace in the middle of the COVID-19 when everybody else is losing their mind and going crazy. God will give you a peace, and folk will start looking at you and say, "How is it that you can stay calm? How is it you can stay so cool? How is it you can stay so collected even during that time?" And you can tell them, "It's because I got the peace of God." My brothers and sisters, that's the first triad that deals with our mind. But then the second triad deals with how we are to interact with each other and our neighborly concern. Paul says that we ought to have patience. Patience refers to the quality of mind that disposes us to take everything in good part and not easily be so offended. My brothers and sisters, that's big, because so many times we are so easily offended. So many times but my brothers and sisters, patience says that I will, even in the midst of what's going on, I will not be personally offended. Another word is long suffering. Sometimes you have to suffer long. Sometimes you have to go through some things. Sometimes you just have to wait it out. You have to be patient, but not only patient, but kindness. My brothers and sisters, kindness, we have to be careful because we're not always kind to people, but kindness can go a long way. Kindness in how you act, in what you say, and what you do. Sometimes a kind word can go a long way. When is the last time you've given someone a compliment? When is the last time you thought of someone other than yourself and said it would be a kind gesture just to buy them a cup of coffee? When is the last time you said, how can I show kindness to somebody that as a part of our fruit of the Spirit, that we are called to be kind to one another? Be kind. That's major. Be careful of what you say. We don't always say the most kind things. We don't always do the most kind things. We don't always react in the most kind manner. But Paul says that a part of the fruit of the Spirit is being kind. And then Paul goes on and says, not only do you have to have patience, and not only do you have to have kindness, but then he says you have to have goodness. My brothers and sisters, the word goodness, the word that is used in Greek is literally translated as generosity. It's the idea of benevolence. It's the idea of being generous towards someone else. My brothers and sisters, that's why I love faith, because faith is a generous church. Faith knows how to give. Faith understands that all that we have comes from and belongs to God. And because of that, we give because we've been given to. And I don't know if you know it or not, but I found out a long time ago, the more you give, the more God will give to you. That's the second triad. But lastly, there's a third triad that Paul speaks about. It is that of how we ought to govern ourselves. And in this triad, there is faithfulness. The first part of the triad is faithfulness. Faithfulness refers to a trust or a confidence in something or someone. And I don't know about you, but I have learned to trust in the Lord because God has always been faithful to me. I hear the song, great is thy faithfulness to me, O Lord, my Father. And I don't know about you, but because God has been so faithful to me, even when I have not been faithful to him, I have come to my mind. I have concluded that I'm going to do my best to be trustful in him, to be faithful to him. I will trust in the Lord until I die. You can't make me doubt him, for I know too much about him. But not only is there faithfulness, but there is gentleness as well. My brothers and sisters, gentleness is a humility and consideration towards others. As an expression of the fruit of the Spirit, gentleness is a strength under control, power, harness, and loving service, and respectful actions. My brothers and sisters, gentleness can be shown even when someone is in the wrong. How we approach them and how we deal with the situation can make all the difference in the world. We have to learn how to be gentle, even in our corrections. I know if you're like me, you've had situations even growing up where you were not always dealt with gentleness. That sometimes your parents use the rod of correction. Sometimes they would raise their voice. But as Christians, as brother and sisters in Christ, we are taught to be gentle to one another. We are taught to take into consideration how another would feel. And so we have have to learn how to be respectful even when we approach people who we believe have harmed us or who may be in the wrong. Then lastly, Paul says self-control. Self-control is the ability to hold on to oneself, to keep oneself in check. The word refers to the mastery of one's desires or passions. What areas in life do you have to have self-control in? We all need help someplace. I love to eat. I love to eat, and every now and then I need self-control on not going back, or not going for that extra cookie. We all have to practice self-control. What areas do you need self-control in over today?